Have you ever done everything right, eaten fruit every day, drank water, tried to be healthy and still felt that quiet fear when your lab results come back because something is slipping anyway? If that sounds familiar, listen closely because what I'm about to say may be uncomfortable, but it could also be the most important warning you hear this year. The truth is, some of the foods we trust the most, the ones labeled healthy, can quietly push weakened kidneys toward a point of no return. And by the time the numbers change, the damage is often already far advanced. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and I need you to understand the urgency here. Kidney decline almost never announces itself with pain. It doesn't knock loudly, it whispers. Creatinine doesn't rise overnight, it rises after years of silent strain, while life feels normal and habits feel safe. And that's exactly why so many people are blindsided, because they were never told where the real danger hides or how close it might already be. But here's where this conversation changes direction, because fear alone doesn't protect anyone. What does protect you is clarity. There are specific choices, simple, ordinary choices, that can either drain your kidneys or give them room to breathe again. And the difference between the two is smaller than most people realize. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what's been working against your kidneys without you knowing it. And then I'll walk you through a clear, practical solution, one that uses everyday foods the right way to help stabilize creatinine, calm inflammation, and support your kidneys before it's too late. So stay with me, because this isn't about giving things up. It's about finally understanding what your kidneys have been trying to tell you and how to respond while you still can. Most people I meet in my clinic don't come in because they've been careless. They come in confused. They sit down, look me straight in the eye, and say something like, "Doctor, I don't understand. I eat clean. I don't smoke. I drink water. I even eat fruit every single morning. How could my kidneys be getting worse?" And that question, honest, frustrated, almost betrayed, is exactly where this conversation has to begin. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Believing you're doing the right thing doesn't always mean your body agrees. In fact, some of the habits people feel most proud of are the very ones quietly putting the most pressure on weakened kidneys. Morning fruit is a perfect example. A banana, a glass of orange juice, maybe some melon. It sounds like the definition of healthy, doesn't it? Fresh, natural, doctor approved. Except when kidney function starts to decline, that same clean breakfast can turn into a mineral overload your body can no longer clear efficiently. I want you to picture this for a moment. Your kidneys are already working with reduced filtering capacity, but every morning you're pouring in a heavy load of potassium, phosphorus, and natural sugars all at once. There's no pain, no immediate warning. You feel fine, but inside your bloodstream becomes crowded with minerals your kidneys can't remove fast enough. Over time, that excess potassium strains, the heart phosphorus accelerates vascular damage, and sugar fuels inflammation that slowly scars kidney tissue. The danger isn't dramatic, it's quiet, repetitive, and invisible. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Linda. She was 62, active, and deeply committed to doing everything right. Her day started with fruit smoothies, bananas, oranges, sometimes mango, because she believed she was nourishing her body. When her creatinine crept up, she was shocked. "How could this be happening?" she asked. When we broke down her routine together, nothing looked reckless. And that's exactly the problem. The damage wasn't coming from obvious mistakes, it was coming from good intentions, applied to a body that had changed. Clinically, this pattern is far more common than people realize. Studies consistently show that in individuals with declining kidney function, excess dietary potassium and phosphorus are associated with faster progression of chronic kidney disease, even when calories and fat intake are controlled. And here's the part most people never hear: by the time creatinine rises enough to get flagged, kidney filtration has often already dropped by nearly 50%. That means the margin for healthy mistakes is much smaller than it used to be. Now pause for a second, because this is where I want to talk directly to you. Have you ever thought, "At least I eat fruit, I'm doing something right"? If so, you're not alone. But I want you to leave a comment and be honest. Have you been relying on fruit as your safety net, believing it could only help and never harm? I read every comment, because recognizing this pattern is the first step toward changing it. And here's the shift that matters most. The issue isn't fruit itself. The issue is context. What helps a healthy kidney can overwhelm a struggling one. This is the paradox no one explains clearly. Eating healthy without understanding what your kidneys can actually handle doesn't protect you, it blinds you. And that realization alone is enough to change how you look at food from this point forward. But here's where things get hopeful, because once you see this pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. Not all fruits behave the same way in the body. Some don't overload the kidneys at all. In fact, a few of them actively reduce the burden your kidneys are carrying, almost like giving them a backup system when they're under stress. And the first of those fruits is so simple, so familiar, that most people overlook it completely. But knowing this paradox alone isn't enough, because one common fruit does something very different. It doesn't add to the problem, it quietly pulls waste away before your kidneys even have to deal with it. Once people finally understand that eating healthy can still hurt weakened kidneys, the next question I hear is always the same. So what can I eat without making things worse? And this is where the conversation turns from fear into control, because one of the safest, most powerful answers is also one of the most ordinary fruits on the planet, the apple. I often tell my patients this: when your kidneys are struggling, you don't need food that works harder, you need food that works smarter. And apples do exactly that. He was analytical, skeptical, and frankly exhausted by dietary rules. When his lab started to worsen, we didn't overhaul his entire diet overnight. We made one small change, one whole apple a day, eaten slowly with the skin on. 3 months later, his phosphorus levels were more stable. His creatinine had stopped creeping upward, and his biggest surprise wasn't the labs, it was how simple it felt. "This is the first thing I've done that doesn't feel like punishment," he told me. Science backs this up. Research published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases has shown that higher intake of soluble fiber is associated with significantly better phosphorus control and lower inflammatory markers in people with chronic kidney disease. Apples also contain natural antioxidants like quercetin and chlorogenic acid compounds known to suppress the same inflammatory pathways that contribute to kidney scarring over time. And unlike many fruits, apples have a low glycemic index, meaning they don't spike blood sugar, a critical factor, since blood sugar swings quietly damage the tiny blood vessels that feed your nephrons. But there's a detail here that matters more than most people realize. If you peel the apple, you lose much of this protection. The skin is where the fiber density and antioxidant concentration live. This isn't about perfection, it's about intention. One apple with the peel eaten consistently sends a clear message to your body: less stress, less inflammation, less waste for the kidneys to manage. And here's what I want you to notice emotionally. Apples don't feel dramatic. They don't feel medicinal. That's why people underestimate them. But kidney health isn't restored through dramatic gestures. It's rebuilt through small, repeatable decisions that quietly shift the internal environment day after day. Apples don't force your kidneys to work harder. They give them breathing room. Yet as powerful as apples are, they still work mostly at the level of digestion and inflammation control. They lighten the load, but they don't fully address what's happening deep inside the kidney cells themselves. Because even when waste is reduced, something else continues to attack the nephrons from within: oxidative stress at the cellular level. And that's where the next fruit changes the story entirely, because it doesn't just reduce the burden on your kidneys, it actively protects the filters themselves right down to the cell. If apples give your kidneys breathing room by reducing the load, blueberries do something deeper and far more powerful. They step inside the kidney itself. This is where the story shifts from digestion and inflammation control to cellular protection. Because when kidneys decline, the real damage isn't just about what comes in, it's about what happens inside each tiny filter, one cell at a time. Blueberries may look small and gentle, but biologically they're anything but. They are naturally very low in potassium, roughly 55 to 60 milligrams per half cup, and almost negligible in phosphorus. That alone makes them safer than most fruits for weakened kidneys. But what makes blueberries extraordinary is their concentration of anthocyanins, the deep blue pigments that act like body armor for your nephrons. Anthocyanins are powerful antioxidants that neutralize oxidative stress, one of the main drivers of kidney scarring and filtration loss. When oxidative stress rises, nephron cells become inflamed, stiff, and eventually dysfunctional. Blueberries interrupt that process. Studies published in journals of nutritional biochemistry and renal research have shown that regular blueberry intake can reduce inflammatory markers and oxidative damage in kidney tissue by 30 to nearly 50% over time. That's not cosmetic nutrition, that's functional protection. This is where I want to slow the pace for a moment and tell you about Susan, a retired school teacher who came to me terrified of what her labs were showing. Her GFR was declining steadily, and she felt like her body was slipping away from her, despite doing everything right. She loved fruit, especially smoothies, but once we replaced high-potassium fruits with half a cup of blueberries 3 to 4 times a week, something changed. 6 months later, her kidney function hadn't improved dramatically, but it had stopped getting worse. And sometimes in kidney care, stopping the slide is the victory that buys you years. What most people don't realize is that blueberries don't just fight inflammation, they also improve insulin sensitivity. Stable blood sugar matters because glucose spikes damage the delicate blood vessels feeding the nephrons. In long-term observational studies, people who regularly consume berries showed significantly better blood sugar control and a lower rate of kidney function decline, especially in diabetes-related kidney disease. Blueberries also support nitric oxide production, gently relaxing blood vessels and lowering blood pressure. Another quiet but critical layer of protection for kidney filtration. Now here's a moment I want you to pause with me. If you've ever thought antioxidants were just marketing buzzwords, ask yourself this: what happens when kidney cells are constantly under attack and never given a chance to recover? Blueberries don't fix everything, but they change the internal environment, turning constant damage into something the body can finally manage. And fresh or frozen both work. Freezing does not destroy anthocyanins. What matters is consistency, not perfection. This is also where I place a quiet warning, especially around the 4 to 5 minute mark of this video. Not all fruits that look colorful are protective like blueberries. Some carry sugars and minerals that accelerate the very damage blueberries are preventing. That contrast is critical, and most people miss it. If this is new to you, stay with me, because what comes next surprises almost everyone. Blueberries protect the nephron from oxidative assault, but there's another fruit that works differently. It doesn't just shield kidney cells, it helps switch on the body's internal repair systems, activating genes most people never even hear about. But knowing this still isn't enough, because the next factor goes beyond protection. It touches the kidney's ability to repair itself, and very few people are ever told how that works. Up to this point, we've talked about reducing the burden on the kidneys and protecting the nephron from damage. But now we move into territory that surprises almost everyone, because very few people realize this. The body doesn't just defend itself, it can also repair if the right signals are turned on. And one of the most unexpected foods linked to that process is something many people think of as too sweet to be helpful: red grapes. Here's where the science gets fascinating. In the skin of red and deep purple grapes lives a compound called resveratrol. You may have heard about it in relation to heart health or red wine, but its role in kidney health is rarely explained. Resveratrol activates a family of proteins known as sirtuins, especially one called SIRT1. Think of SIRT1 as a master switch for cellular survival. When it's activated, kidney cells become better at repairing DNA damage, calming inflammation, and restoring balance after chronic stress. I once worked with a patient named Harold, a 70-year-old former construction manager with long-standing high blood pressure. His kidney numbers had been slipping for years, and he assumed decline was inevitable. We didn't change everything at once. Instead, we added one carefully controlled habit: a small handful of dark red grapes, 2 to 3 times a week, always with meals. 6 months later, his labs didn't show a miracle, but they showed something far more meaningful: stability, no further decline. And in kidney care, stability often means preserved independence. Clinical research supports this pattern. Studies published in renal and metabolic journals have shown that resveratrol supplementation, or equivalent intake through food, can improve markers of kidney inflammation and oxidative damage, with some studies reporting up to a 20% improvement in functional indicators over several months. But grapes offer more than just resveratrol. Their polyphenols support microvascular circulation, and that matters because kidneys are essentially dense networks of tiny blood vessels. When circulation improves, filtration improves. Now, this is where honesty matters. Grapes do contain natural sugars, mainly glucose and fructose. That doesn't make them dangerous, but it does make portion control non-negotiable. More is not better here. 15 to 20 grapes is enough. Eat them slowly, always with the skin on. The deeper the color, the higher the resveratrol content. Green grapes don't offer the same benefit, and grape juice strips away fiber while concentrating sugar, so it's not a substitute. Emotionally, this is an important moment in the story. Red grapes challenge the idea that kidney health is only about restriction. They show that healing isn't just about avoiding damage, it's about sending repair signals back into the system. That realization alone often shifts how people think about food, from fear to strategy. But even cellular repair needs one more piece to truly work. Because inflammation doesn't just damage cells, it creates debris protein, buildup in fibrotic tissue that the body struggles to clear. And that's where the final fruit changes the entire equation, not by repairing cells directly, but by clearing the battlefield so healing can actually continue. But knowing this still isn't enough, because there's one last factor, often misunderstood, often overlooked, that can calm inflammation and support natural detox in a way nothing else on this list can. By now you've seen how different fruits play very different roles. Apples reduce the load, blueberries protect the nephron, red grapes help switch on repair. But none of that fully works if inflammation keeps piling up faster than the body can clear it. And this is where pineapple quietly becomes the turning point, because pineapple doesn't just support the kidneys, it helps clean the environment they're trying to heal in. Pineapple often gets misunderstood. People think of it as a sweet tropical indulgence, something you eat on vacation, not something you use strategically for health. But metabolically, pineapple behaves very differently from most fruits. A cup of fresh pineapple contains relatively low potassium, especially compared to bananas or oranges, making it far safer for kidneys that can't handle mineral overload. Yet potassium levels are only part of the story. The real power of pineapple lies in an enzyme most people have never been taught to respect. That enzyme is bromelain. Bromelain is not a vitamin, it's not a sugar, it's a protein-digesting enzyme with strong anti-inflammatory and anti-fibrotic properties. In simple terms, bromelain helps break down the inflammatory proteins and debris that accumulate in chronically stressed tissues, including kidney tissue. When inflammation lingers, it creates scar-forming signals that stiffen the filtration system. Bromelain interrupts that cycle, helping the body dismantle what no longer belongs there. I think of a patient named Carol, a 65-year-old woman who struggled with swelling fatigue and that constant feeling of heaviness people with kidney stress often describe. Her diet looked healthy, but inflammation markers stayed elevated. We added fresh pineapple, half a cup 2 to 3 times a week, nothing extreme. Within weeks, her bloating decreased. Over months, her inflammatory labs improved. She didn't feel cured, but she felt lighter, and that mattered. When the body isn't fighting inflammation, non-stop healing finally has space to happen. Science supports this effect. Studies published in inflammatory and renal research journals have shown that bromelain can reduce pro-inflammatory markers by 30 to over 40%, while improving tissue recovery and circulation. Pineapple also delivers a solid dose of vitamin C, an antioxidant that neutralizes free radicals before they damage kidney cells further. Together, bromelain clears the clutter and vitamin C protects what remains. There's one rule here that cannot be ignored. Pineapple must be fresh. Canning and pasteurization destroy bromelain. Pineapple juice concentrates sugar and removes fiber. Those versions don't offer the same benefit, and in some cases, they do more harm than good. Fresh raw pineapple, including a bit of the fibrous core, where bromelain is most concentrated, is where the therapeutic value lives. Emotionally, this is where everything comes together. Pineapple reminds us that kidney support isn't about chasing superfoods, it's about understanding function. Apples lighten the load. Blueberries defend the cells. Grapes signal repair. Pineapple clears inflammation, so all of that work can actually stick. This is the moment where people stop asking what's healthy and start asking, what does my body need right now? And that question leads us directly into the most important part of this entire video. Because even the right foods can fail if they're used the wrong way at the wrong time or without a clear system behind them. But knowing this still isn't enough, because how you combine these foods and how consistently you repeat them may be the single factor that determines whether kidney decline slows or continues toward dialysis. Before you leave, I want you to take a breath and really hear this. If you've made it to the end of this video, that already tells me something important about you. It means you care. It means you're paying attention before things reach a crisis point. And that matters more than you realize. Kidney health isn't restored through fear or perfection. It's protected through awareness, consistency, and small choices repeated day after day. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to start making decisions that give your kidneys less stress and more support, beginning right where you are. If this video helped you see food creatinine or your kidneys differently, even a little, do yourself a favor and save this video. Come back to it when you feel confused, discouraged, or overwhelmed by lab results. And if you want to stay ahead instead of reacting too late, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week I share clear, science-based medical insights and simple routines designed to help you protect your kidneys, lower inflammation, and make sense of what your body is trying to tell you without hype and without fear. Most of all, hold on to this message of hope. Your kidneys are not fragile failures. They are resilient organs that have been working for you every single day, often under more strain than you knew. When you give them the right conditions, they can stabilize, recover, and keep you independent longer than you were ever told was possible. Healing doesn't start in a hospital or with a prescription. It starts with understanding, with intention, and with believing that what you do today still matters. Take care of your kidneys, stay curious, stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video.